Hello and welcome to another episode of Alex Plays Pokemon Gold. Today's video is slightly different because it is pretty much Alex reviews Pokemon Gold instead of plays. So in the background will be the training that we did, I did off screen originally in preparation for last episode's Red Battle, which was our 100th episode uploaded. So thank you guys for watching 100 episodes of me playing Pokemon so far. So I really appreciate that, and right off the bat would like to thank you guys for your support so far. But yeah, let's get into the review. So I did have one for Series 1, but it seemed to have got lost. So Series 2 will be the official start. And before we get anywhere, as we see, is that we have colour in these games compared to Series 1. I think the graphics overall and the fact that Pokemon have colour is a really good thing. As it was able to bring in shinies, it shows the evolution of the games and the graphic side of it. More Pokemon have better features, all that type of things. I believe is really good. I'm happy with that and can't really complain. Overall, I think the game itself is pretty good. I'm not saying that Gen 1 wasn't, but Gen 2 is definitely an upgrade, especially going into the fact that we can go back into Kanto, which moves us on to the post-game side of things. So, Gen 1's post-game was pretty much catch Mewtwo, and that was pretty much about it. Gen 2's post-game, we get a completely new region to explore, or old region returned, because so we get another eight new gym badges that we get to compete for, although most of them were pretty easy to do after you complete the Pokemon League, so it's pretty much you can whiz through them in a couple of hours. But just the fact of being able to go around and collect another 8 gym badges and effectively play a completely new region again is really good. I think, in my opinion, I really enjoy the fact of having to go around and do that again. Yeah, which from the post game in Kanto. Speaking of Kanto, that was where we got the last few. The last game was based, obviously. Shows that it was obviously this game was a sequel to Gen 1 happening 3 years later, but I think there's lots of different little things or little hints in there that and wee small parts that occasionally you'll miss, but if you talk to everybody you can get wee parts of what has happened in the last 3 years. So like one of the wee side quests of bringing the doll to that little girl, it mentions the fact that 3 years prior somebody gave her said doll, which was actually us from the previous game, for example. That's not including the fact that you also go into the whole Team Rocket storyline where they have disbanded 3 years prior because the main character in Gen 1 has defeated Giovanni and he has went into hiding, training, whatever. So they've disbanded, are supposedly officially suspended, and the fact that they've came back as effectively a lesser group on the hope that he comes back, bringing in the fact that his son is now here as your main rival, just brings in little small things that I quite like regarding it, that you think sequel wise. Plus you've also got the gym leaders from Kanto have been promoted to Elite Four, or Lance from the Elite Four now being the champion 3 years later. So you've got some recurring or other characters coming back, showing what they've done in the last 3 years to come back, which is real. I really like the fact of it shows that it's not just a brand new game as such. It's the world, the Pokemon world has evolved, and you can get to see the progression of other characters, even if you don't see the exactly what they have done. You can see where they were from the last games compared to where they are now, which I think is a really cool thing. That brings us on to Red, who we obviously took on in the last video, of the fact that he's meant to be us from the previous game, hence the reason why he's the strongest trainer, because obviously the main character in the Generation 1 games is effectively the champion now and the strongest trainer in Kanto, hence the reason, if you complete it anyway, hence the reason why he's the strongest trainer in Kanto, which I think is a really good addition to the game. It's a wee callback, it gives you a challenge to do, and it keeps the game not fresh as such, but it ties it into the previous game more than it already has, and means that you still need to have a challenge to do at the end of the game, or an end goal, whereas the last games obviously was just catch Mewtwo, and then you've effectively got nothing else to do apart from repeat other things, whereas here you need to still train in order to defeat Red, which is really good, especially if he also doesn't talk, which shows the fact of that he is us, because we didn't talk effectively in the last games either. But yeah, that's obviously not including the fact that there's 100 new Pokemon in this generation, which also is a positive thing, with having to go and find 100 new ones, keeps the game fresh and all that stuff. Which brings us on to the pseudo-legendary of the games. Pseudo-legendary being the not a legendary, but it's got the stats, or the base stats of a legendary Pokemon. The first games it was Dragonite, which we tried to evolve in from Dratini to Dragonite, but only got as far as Dragonair in the last series and also in this series. But one day we will be able to get a Dragonite. This game, the pseudo-legendary is Tyranitar, which I'm not too pleased with the fact that we need to wait so late in the game, as in Mount Silver, the last area in the game, in order to get it. In Gen 1, we were able to get a Dratini after completing the 8th gym badge, which I think is fair. It's a pseudo legendary, it shouldn't be easy to catch or be able to obtain. However, you still had time to train it up for the Elite Four or your biggest challenges. So it's still a reasonable reason, and there's a good reason for catching it, as it can be beneficial. In Gen 2 games, there's not really any point in catching Larvitar, which is the pre-evolved form of Tyranitar, because you've already got your base team that is effectively leveled up. There's no point in getting a Tyranitar that late in the game, because it's not going to make any difference. You'll have a strong rock type if you want a rock type on your team, so you don't need Tyranitar. If you want a dark type in your team, you've got a strong dark type in your team already. There's no point in you, unless you're completing the Pokedex, there's no point in getting a Tyranitar that late in the game, because all you've got to do is defeat Red, and that's it. So I don't see the point in the reason why it's so late, which isn't, I wouldn't say is the best. Hopefully they fix it for the next series or the next generation, because having to wait that long in order to get the pseudo legendary is pretty pointless. It's just literally they've put the pseudo legendary down to a Pokedex filler effectively for this generation, which I don't think is what it should be. It should be the fact that, okay, it should be difficult to get. I'm not saying it shouldn't be. Like in Gen 1, it was tough to get. If you watched that series, you know that I had to repeat or re-record all the getting the 8th gym badge and all that. That included getting Dratini, and it took me a good 3 hours to complete the gym, get my 8th gym badge, and also find Dratini, because it's not an easy spawn. It's not easy to get, but you have the ability to get the pseudo legendary at that perfect time. There's no point in getting it this late, in my opinion. Talking about pseudo legendaries, let's move over to the roaming legendaries, or the legendary trio, the legendary dogs, Raikou, Entei, and Suicune. Yes, this is an interesting one, because I like that it's a challenge to get them, but see, the fact that every single route that you go into or move into a different route, they change place. That's good, and the fact that they've got a map also helps. But I seemed to have ran into Raikou, and then he never appeared on my map at the time he's meant to. So why could I not? He's supposed. I believe that he's supposed to turn. I might be wrong, and if I'm wrong, please put it in the comments. But he's meant to. A wee picture or something should pop up on your map to say what route he's in, and it never popped up for me, making it almost impossible to catch the legendaries. If you run into them I think what it's supposed to be is, if you run into them the first time, then they appear on your map. So you obviously need to encounter them without them being on your map the first time, but after that they do appear on your map, which I think is perfectly fine. But I ran into Raikou and he never popped up on the map, meaning it's also impossible to catch, because he's going to be roaming around every area now, and I don't even have a sniff at what it can be, because his areas can go back and forth, or move from one side of the map to the other. It's not in a specific order. So personally, I think the roaming legendaries is a good idea. It makes a challenge to go and get or obtain. However, it didn't seem to work for, I believe, the way it's supposed to. If I'm completely wrong, then fair enough. But I don't think it worked the way it should for me. I'd never ran into Entei and Suicune, hence the reason why I can't complain too much with them or say too much on them, but I definitely ran into Raikou and it never popped up. But yeah, I do also like the fact that they run straight away, meaning you need to put some sort of strategy in order to catch them, i.e. Gasslayer Haunter with Moonlook or something like that. I do like the fact that there needs to be a bit of strategy or pure luck to get them. So I can't really complain too much with that part, but I do wish that it would make it slightly easier for that aspect, or just the game doing what I think it was supposed to do, to be honest. But then moving on from the roaming legendaries to the box legendaries. So I liked the fact that you can catch both box legendaries in the game. I think that's a great idea because it means you can complete the Pokédex without having to trade or rely on somebody else for the game. So being able to get, in my case, Ho-Oh because I'm playing Gold earlier on, but then having to wait until the post game in order to obtain Lugia, I think was a great idea. I hope they keep that in for future generations. However, I do understand that people will go, well, if you buy one game, then you should get the box legendary for that game. It demeans the fact or reduces the reasons for getting a specific game. So what's the point of me getting silver if I could just get Lugia in gold? Or what's the point of me getting gold if I can get Ho-Oh later on and just have both of them? I do get that, to be honest, but I think for somebody like me who doesn't trade with anyone or have anyone to trade with, I think it's a good idea. Instead of me, for example, having to buy two games, buy two devices in order to effectively trade with myself in order to complete the decks, is basically my opinions on that. I like summary wise, I think catching both legendaries or both box legendaries is a good thing, and the fact that they meant you can get one within this. No, it wasn't even part of the story, to be fair. You could have just, as long as you knew what you were doing or had the internet, it was fine, I guess. But it was a challenge, but not a challenge. It was a challenge if you didn't have the internet to fall back on or knew previously, and it's not a challenge at all if you did. But I think everyone nowadays knows what the rainbow wing and the silver wing are used for, so they shouldn't need to go onto the internet to find that anyway. And I do like the fact, even though it took me a bit longer than I would have liked to catch Ho-Oh, then yeah, I do like the fact that it is a challenge, so can't really complain with that one. But yeah, overall I think it was a really good game, a really good upgrade compared to Series 1 and Series 2, and hopefully they are able to progress on what they've done here. What is the next game going to be? Is it going to be a sequel again? Is Gen 3, although going to be a completely different region, is it going to have tie-ins to what happens in Gen 2 and Gen 1? Or what is going to happen there? So it'll be nice to see what happens when we start the third generation. Put down in the comments what you think is going to happen story mode. But yeah, I think that's going to be it for the review. I will keep the training on in the footage, the training on in the background for the rest of the video, so you can see what's going on or how my training went in order to battle Red. But if you're a fan of what's been on in this series and excited for the next one, then please like, share and subscribe. And again, thank you so much for 100, well, this being the 101 videos on my channel so far. So thank you guys all for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.